Hello and welcome back to another document deep dive. This time we're moving from the end of the war on the Eastern Front towards its very beginning, namely September 1941. One of the tropes that you always see about the Barbarossa time frame fighting, and for good reason because this happened a few times, is the one of the what I would call the Soviet tank rampage, where some kind of heavy or at least medium Soviet tank, unstoppable by the German anti-tank weapons of the time, goes on some kind of doomed Rambo-style rampage until at some point they are knocked out by pioneers. The most famous example is probably this one here from Raisinai, where a Soviet KV-1 did that. They either go on a rampage in these stories or they hold off the attackers. Now, what I find interesting is that there are some of these that are not that well published, and our researcher radiosmersh from FH2, he found one of those on the Russian-speaking internet, and he also found German documents about the same battle. So I thought, no, this is interesting, let's compare the two. Now, this one will be a bit different though. The main difference is that normally in these videos I look at fairly boring, for most people, tables and reports. However, these are actually propaganda texts, both of them, both the Russian and the German. Now we will start with the German one, and this is what it looks like. Don't worry, I will switch to something more interesting when I actually read it out. This is what it looks like. These are narrative or literary texts, which I think were created mostly for publication in newspapers for propaganda purposes. When I say literary text, I don't mean that they are particularly high quality. They are written a bit like a cheap Pulp Fiction style dollar store novel, or I guess German Mark store novel in this case. So these aren't like great, but they are written in a very exciting tone, which is different from my normal fare. That said, my voice will as always remain very monotone. So what I will do is just read out this German propaganda text, then we will see what the Russians had to say about this very same event. The Germans helpfully also produced this map and sketch of the action. We will look at the map first here. While I read out, I will be able to show you some details on this map. So let's read out this propaganda text. Strike hard. Reports from the spirit of the times and the lived experience of the Greif or Griffin Division, 122nd Infantry Division. On 6th September 1941, Regiment 411 of our Greif Division is attacking from the area south of Peschanka in a northwesterly direction. The regimental command post is located in Perevos. The terrain is carefully secured against tank incursions. The men of the anti-tank gun crews scan the forest edge attentively, prepared for any surprise. From the upper floor of the building housing the regimental staff, the eye of the 6th Battery, the observation post, watches the area west of Perevos. Again and again the scissor binoculars sweep the forest fringe and the scrubland. It is around 12:30 p.m. Then unmistakable engine noise sounds from the forest. Enemy tank! The observation post has immediately identified the monster, probably a 52-tonner. There! Another one! In a matter of seconds, the fire order is issued to the battery and Regimental Command Post 411 is informed. The gunners of the 6th Battery spring to their pieces and hurl salvo after salvo at the rolling giants. And it is flawless, precise craftsmanship by the artillerymen. The impacts are well placed. Yet this seems not to trouble the tanks of the Reds. Unhurriedly, they roll along the forest edge, pause briefly to orient themselves. The heavy turret of the 52-tonners turns towards the village of P. It is as if the massive green monsters sluggishly move their fire-spitting heads back and forth. But not a single shot leaves the barrel. The turret swings back, tracks rattle, and the colossi continue their movement southward, through forest and brush. Now they emerge from the forest and roll down a plain overgrown with scrub, turn in a wide curve, and thunder towards the village, constantly covered by artillery fire. By now, the red-violet signal flare has long been hurled into the air. Tank alert! All nerves taut, the tank hunters await the rumbling beasts. There, Now the first tank appears, rolling forward from the shallow depression. The most advanced gun of the 2nd Company, Anti-Tank Battalion 122, immediately engages. 400 meters, armor-piercing rounds, fire at will. Shell after shell howls from the barrel. With dull, slapping blows, the projectiles strike the armored giant, against the turret, against the tracks, against the frontal armor. In vain. Nearer and nearer rolls the seemingly invulnerable monster. Now it is only 250 meters, now 200 meters. Ammunition! The tank is going to run us over. The gun commander shouts it. Ammunition is rushed up at top speed. Once more the anti-tank gun spews round after round. Now the steel colossus has closed to 100 meters, 80 meters, 60 meters. It heads straight for the gun and sweeps it wildly with its machine gun. The crew of the anti-tank gun, a non-commissioned officer and 4 men, together with Lieutenant S, who has rushed to them. All of them work almost mechanically, with cool foreheads and iron nerves. The heart pounds hot and fierce, but now they know only their combat mission. Their duty, now that they stand under the spell of the advancing giant. Again and again, the breach is torn open. Fire, only fire. The monster has thundered up to within 40 meters, 30 meters, 20 meters. Ominous, the rattling of the greedy tracks, grinding the way forward, crushing everything. Now it is 10 meters, yet the tank hunters keep firing. Can they even do anything against the 52-tonner anymore? Is it not madness to take on the Colossus with a small caliber anti-tank gun? Such thoughts are meaningless to the men throughout the entire fight. They remain at their posts. At 6 meters, 5 meters, the giant threatens to crush you. Take full cover, away from the gun, Lieutenant S roars it at the last second. Most of them make the saving leap. Only one comrade stumbles over the trail arm and becomes the victim of the greedy colossus, which now rolls over the gun and seeks its next target, constantly followed by the 2nd tank. The anti-tank gun, positioned to the east, has long since opened fire, burning shot after shot into the attacker's hide in vain. Here too, the crew dives for cover at the final moment. On rolls the enemy steel giant, firing wildly ahead of it. Now it turns sharply around the corner of the building in which the regimental command post is housed. Seconds of breathless tension. Lieutenant S, from the artillery observation post, is just about to rush out of the house. Too late. The tank has already cut off his path. With a leap, he reaches the upper floor, from where, no longer within the tank's field of fire, he continues to follow the course of events. Now the first tank halts heavily. The turret turns towards the regimental command post. A shell is fired into the building, and now the monster attempts to ram the house. This is the event depicted in the sketch here. Twice it gathers momentum. Window panes shatter, lime mortar bursts into dust. In vain. The house is too solid. Again the rattling of tracks, engine noise. The green monster trundles down the village street, followed by the 2nd massive box. Wild fire pours from the machine gun barrels, but the men of the 3rd Company Anti-Tank Battalion pursue the tanks under constant changes of position, and fire at them with one gun as fiercely as it can manage. Already the first rounds have rendered the turret of the trailing tank immobile. Shell after shell strikes the steel colossus, but here smoke pours from the seams of the turret hatch. Clearly it has been hit. Yet it continues to rattle on behind the other. Meanwhile, hard by the village street, a gun of the 2nd Company Anti-Tank Battalion goes into position and attempts to catch the first attacker after all, but it's too late. The tank already rolls over the limber and crushes it. At the northern exit of the village, the tanks turn around, then swing westward and thunder back towards the forest. Smoking, the last colossus vanishes into the dense brush. This concludes the first part of the tank rampage. Now, obviously, the second part has to be about hunting down these tanks, otherwise the Germans would probably not have put this into a propaganda text if they just had been run over by a bunch of tanks. So let's see how it went on. In the early morning hours of 7th September 1941, a reconnaissance patrol of the 7th Company Infantry Regiment 410, under the leadership of Private J, reports that an enemy heavy tank is stuck fast in a forest clearing in front of their sector. Immediately, an assault detachment is assembled. First Lieutenant SP, with a group from the engineer platoon of Infantry Regiment 410, Lieutenant S, with 2 groups of the 7th Company Infantry Regiment 410, as well as a 5 cm anti-tank gun from the 14th Company Infantry Regiment 411. At around 8 a.m., the assault detachment advances with orders to destroy the tank. Carefully, the men work their way towards the peat works south of Peschanka, securing attentively to the right and left. "There, someone's jumping up," one of them calls, pointing ahead. There, an earth-brown figure runs in wild haste across embankment and ditch towards the shed. As everyone wonders what the fellow could possibly be doing there, the riddle is quickly solved. Clearly visible, right beside that brown hut, is a 25-ton tank, likewise camouflaged as a shed. At this point, it might be good to point out the 52-ton tanks were KV-1s, the 25-ton tank probably a T-26 or BT-7. The tank crew, squatting on the ground, eating breakfast, note here probably the Slav squad, the famous one, is initially struck with stark terror as the men of the assault detachment, who have worked their way up with lightning speed from the right, open fire. Machine gun bursts hiss towards the Reds. They attempt to climb into the tank in vain. Hand grenades fly through the air and burst apart. Bundled charges scream. In a short time, the Bolsheviks are dealt with. The 25-tonner burns. Ammunition explodes. Crashing. Finished. Then one man discovers, scarcely 50 meters away, a second tank, a gigantic box, which has evidently become hopelessly bogged down in a ditch. The crew has quickly crawled into the tank and sealed all bulkheads and hatches tight. That seems to them the safest option. Meanwhile, however, the anti-tank gun has opened fire at close range and achieved a penetration on the frontal armor. Yet, even so, the brute is not easily dealt with until someone says, "Man, throw a hand grenade into the barrel." Promptly, the thing slips into the tank's gun barrel. A bang, and the men cannot believe their eyes. As if on command, all the hatches on the steel colossus fly open. The hand grenade must have fallen through the open breech of the gun, and the detonation pressure was sufficient to blast open the flaps and hatches of the tank. Completely stunned, with bewildered faces, the crew climbs out after a hand grenade tossed into the turret hatch has given them a none-too-gentle prompt. Then a 15-kilogram charge from the engineers finishes off the 52-tonner. Turret and turret ring fly high through the air. Ammunition detonates. The end. That one, too, is destroyed, one of the attackers from Perevos. And the second? It too lies smashed in a forest clearing. Its destruction unfolded as follows. You can see, by the way, the destroyed tank positions roughly here. I think this is the 25-tonner, one of the 52-tonners, and now the tank they are talking about. On 6 September 1941, Lieutenant B is deployed with his engineer platoon of Infantry Regiment 411 in an infantry role about 500 meters north of Potchanka. The machine guns are positioned at a shed from which, at a distance of 100 meters, they can overlook a forest clearing. Already in the morning, they observe 3 tanks rolling past. Toward evening, one of them thunders back towards the Russian positions, apparently intending to fetch help for his bogged-down brother. "Gee whiz, he'll certainly come back again. That'd be quite a prize for us," Lieutenant B thinks. "We'll put a few mines right under his nose." Said and done. Carefully, the engineers creep into the clearing, nearly running into a Red reconnaissance patrol, and lay 4 mines. Right on schedule, at around 11:30 p.m., engine noise sounds from the forest, followed by a detonation. The tank comes to a halt. The crew climbs out and begins hammering and pounding, trying to repair the damage to the tracks. Once again, the engineers rush forward, driving off the Reds, and throw a mine with a fuse into the open turret hatch. A mighty explosion follows. The 52-tonner, the second attacker from Perevos, is destroyed, burning out completely. The armored giants lie in ruins. What the tank hunters of our Greif division begin, through stubborn endurance and unshakable offensive spirit in an apparently unequal fight, is completed by engineers and infantrymen with decisive action and fearless assault. 3 Bolshevik tanks tried their luck, 3 did not return. They were left on the field. End of the original text. As you can see, or as I said before, this is obviously written in a dime store novel kind of exciting way. Quite a nice change of pace. We will now look at the Russian sources for this same event, which comes in the form of award sheets for the crew of one of these tanks. So on this sheet you can see one of the names of these crewmen. 2 of them got medals for this action, and the award citations are fairly similar. So I will first read out their names and general data, and then one of their award citations to give you an overview. Okay, here we go. Award sheet. Isvikov Ivan Igorovich. So Ivan Igorovich and Isvikov would be the last name. Military rank, Red Army soldier. Position, unit. KV tank driver mechanic, 84th Separate Tank Battalion, 55th Army. Recommended 4, Order of the Red Star. Year of birth, 1921. Nationality, Russian. Service in the Red Army since 1940. Party affiliation, non-party. Combat experience, where and when. Has not participated in battles against German fascists. Before that action, of course. Wounds or contusions, wounded on November 5th, 1941. Previous awards, no awards, and some uninteresting stuff. The home address is censored, fair enough. So, a second guy who got an award, or a recommendation I should say, Smirnov Ivan Tikhonovich, so Ivan Tikhonovich Smirnov, military rank, junior military technician, position, unit, tank commander, 84th Separate Tank Battalion. Recommended 4, Order of Lenin. Year of birth, 1908. Nationality, Russian. Service in the Red Army since September 1939. Party affiliation, non-party. Combat experience against the White Finns, 1939 to 1940. So that's the Winter War, obviously. Wounds or contusions, none. No previous awards, and blah blah blah. Okay. Brief, specific account of personal combat heroism or merit. On September 6, 1941, Major General Zaitsev sent 2 KV tanks on a reconnaissance mission to the Badajevo area. As they approached Badajevo, 1 KV tank hit a mine. The remaining KV tank, under the command of junior military technician Smirnov, stayed behind. Comrade Smirnov, showing initiative, led his tank into Badajevo. Unfamiliar with the terrain and enemy positions, Comrade Smirnov encountered a girl from Badajevo named Lydia Bykova and asked her to show the enemy's location. I believe this is Lydia Bykova. Lydia Bykova agreed to get into the tank, and after that, the formidable machine under the command of junior military technician Smirnov advanced against the enemy. Catching them by surprise, it approached the enemy headquarters, immediately crushed 2 passenger cars and killed 1 officer. Taking advantage of the enemy's confusion, Smirnov decided to drive the KV tank with full force into the headquarters. The headquarters of the German unit collapsed and those inside were buried alive. After moving away from the headquarters, Smirnov noticed 4 enemy anti-tank guns without crews and 1 150mm gun. The tank's force crushed the guns. After this, Lydia Bykova pointed out the soldiers' canteen where lunch was taking place. Smirnov decided to drive the tank into the canteen. Thanks to the driver's experience, the tank broke through the canteen wall, causing fear and confusion amongst the soldiers having lunch. It passed through the canteen and struck the second wall, collapsing the canteen and crushing about 60 people having lunch. The tank stalled out, but was restarted and with difficulty extracted itself from the rubble. The Germans began to recover and opened artillery fire on the tank. However, the tank completed its task superbly, returning to its assembly point unscathed, and the girl Lydia Bykova remained to work permanently as a nurse in the 84th Separate Tank Battalion. For the initiative, courage and decisiveness displayed in carrying out the combat mission, junior military technician Smirnov is worthy of being recommended for the government award Order of Lenin. Now, as you can see, there are some differences. I will leave it to you to decide what might have been exaggerated in each of these texts. Lastly, we will of course also look at Lydia here, who also was recommended for an award. Last name and first name, Bykova Lydia Fedorovna. Military rank, none. Position, unit, medical assistant, orderly, 84th Separate Tank Battalion. Recommended 4, medal for courage. Year of birth, 1918. Nationality, Russian. Service in the Red Army since September 1941. Party affiliation, member of Komsomol. Combat experience, where and when, no. Wounds or contusions, no. Previous awards, no. Blah blah blah. Okay. And for her, the account reads, on September 6, 1941, after escaping from the Germans in Badajevo, Lydia Bykova encountered a KV tank under the command of junior military technician Smirnov. Possessing excellent knowledge of the enemy's position and the local terrain, Lydia Bykova agreed to board the tank and show the enemy's location. The tank advanced, and first victims of its guns were 2 passenger cars and 1 German officer. And from here, it kind of goes on. It says later, however, Lydia was not satisfied with this and also pointed out the soldiers' canteen, so her initiative is actually highlighted here, which is quite interesting. And for the courage and bravery displayed during the execution of the mission by the KV tanks, Lydia Bykova is worthy of being recommended for the government award, the Medal for Courage. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this. I thought it was quite interesting and exciting, and written in a bit more blue tone. Thanks for watching and have a nice day.